Cheers, everyone. Happy Director's Commentary. Nice Beaujolais. And we are about to embark on the journey of Survivorman while in Australia. Let's go.
Australia. It's the only nation to occupy an entire continent. It's the most flat and the second driest place on the planet. And even though it has rainforests, snowfields, and lush garden ecosystems, it's undeniably known best for its deserts, also called the Outback.
All right, we could start right here. I think I've spoken before about all kind of the perks of producing film, of being involved with film work. It starts with trying to get free stuff from different companies. I've mentioned before about how I used to be endorsed or sponsored by Mountain Equipment Co-op, Columbia at one point, Jack Wolfskin at another point, gear, clothing, things like this. Well, then the other stage, or the next stage, is you start to get a better budget for the film work that you're doing, and sometimes the project requires purchasing something. A lot of times it's just renting. But in my case, I had to purchase a lot of things because in the case of Survivorman stuff, I had to destroy it. And so I would purchase these different items and then they would become mine. So one example is the quad bike, the ATV, in the Temagami hunting episode that I did with RGW, with Bushman Bob. I still have that quad bike to this day. And another one is this plane. Now this plane is identical to my plane, which is a Challenger 3. I no longer have it. I sold it just a while ago. And so this was not a plane that we purchased and I was able to keep. However, knowing that I wanted to do a Survivorman episode based on being a lost or downed pilot, I thought, all right, well, why don't I take this opportunity to learn how to fly? And I did the very same thing with Shark Week when they, and I've told this story before, but I'll tell it now. They called me up and they said, hey, Les, do you know how to dive? And I knew what they were going to ask me as soon as they asked me that question. So I lied. I said, yeah. And they said, well, we'd like you to host Shark Week, which I ended up doing 3 years in a row. In fact, every Shark Week show that I was on, we were the #1 rated show for that year. But in any event, I didn't know how to dive at all. So I got off that phone, got on the phone again, called my friend and said, hey, how quickly can I become certified for diving? Same thing here. I thought, you know what? I want to learn how to fly. And this is it's classified as an ultralight. I always call it sort of a baby plane because you can actually seat 2 people in the plane. It's a 2-seater. It's enclosed. It's an enclosed cockpit. It's a push prop, as they call it. And I embarked on becoming an ultralight pilot for the sake of filming Survivorman. Talk about a perk. I loved it. But in the end, we wanted to do this shoot down in Australia. Getting an ultralight plane down there that we could use was brutal, I remember. We found this one guy who we ended up paying for it to be shipped there and then assembled there in return for being able to use it for this shoot. If I remember correctly, he wasn't very nice to work with. But in the end, the guy got away with getting this whole ultralight shipped down to him and put together at our expense, at the budget of the show. And here we are, flying away. Now, I'll tell you a little bit more about these scenes in a second.
Aircraft flying has become hugely popular all around the world. Small wonder it's fantastic up here. You've got a bird's eye view of everything wild and natural. Mountains, valleys, forests, and the deserts. But each year, people get lost down there, and they're forced to survive amongst the wallaby and the kangaroo. That'll be my challenge. I'll fly this plane till it runs out of gas and make an emergency landing on someplace flat. And I'll have to survive without food, very little water or gear, no camera crew, alone in the Australian Outback.
The Australian Outback has been high on my list as a place of challenge and mystique, and flying my own ultralight is the most exciting way to get out into the middle of it all. Most anything can suffice as an emergency airstrip when it's needed. Highways, roads, even sod farms or any flat strip of land that looks free of debris. There are a number of out-of-service strips attached to the parks out here. They can be rough, but not so rough that I can't land on them.
So just some full disclosure behind the scenes there. A lot of the filming of that, or during a lot of the filming of that scene, just like we did for so many of the episodes at this point, we shot the intro separately from when I would get dropped off, often the day before. And then the next day I'd pick it up from there. So that's why I always say the crew leaves me alone now, or the crew leaves. And most of the time it was that day and then they would leave. Once in a while it had to be done the day before. I think this might have been one of those cases. And for safety's sake, hidden in behind me was my pilot instructor from Ontario, Canada. I flew him all the way down to Australia to be with me, to get all this set up, to get the plane set up, to get it all working and everything. And then to get all of these shots and just to do it safely. He was lying on his back, and it's just in case I had any issues, because we had thrown that plane together so quickly. I just want to make sure that it wasn't going to fall apart while I was up in the air. So that was tricky. And then I did one last flight to get myself into this location, which I don't think we even filmed, except just sort of me landing here. First things first, got to get this thing tied down and secured for the night. When the wind starts coming in, you could ruin a plane that way if you don't tie it down. Oh, that's right. A little axe like this that gets you in the most trouble. All I'm doing right now is coming in here to tie off the plane. Let me stop before I'm about to talk what I'm about to talk about there. Did I just make any sense at all? Obviously, there was a camera already on the ground to get that shot, right? So we must have, I can't remember who was with me. Maybe it was Max Atwood on this one. We must have gotten that shot, and they would have maybe taken off in a Jeep, Land Cruiser or something to get away from me. But just to get that one shot. I noticed we won't really have a shot of me landing, unless, I can't even remember, unless I landed, set up the camera, took off, and landed again. Maybe I did that. Gosh, it was so long ago now. Wow, my memory is starting to fade. All right, let's just keep watching. But I'm talking about here the simple act of doing very simple things in a survival situation can be very, very dangerous, actually. Fact is, that's when you reach down into a hole somewhere and there's a king brown snake laying there, ready to bite you. All right, well, the plane's nice and secure now. I actually landed it on an old airstrip. It's windy and it's cool. It's been dropping down to, actually got down to 2 degrees Celsius just the other week here, so it can get quite cold. And of course, yes, with the location research and everything else we'd done, I knew where the various landing strips were, and then getting permission to film where we were going to film, this landing strip was going to suffice. So the whole idea was this is me mimicking a pilot who's down and not injured or anything like that, just, had to put the plane down because it was faulty or something was going wrong. I know many pilots that have had to do that and have had to stay overnight or what have you. In the desert, while at the same time it can get up to 45 degrees in the middle of the day. I've got a hatchet, no food, very little water, about a day and a half worth of water, and 1 paper match and a small pot to boil water in. Oh, I've got the kangaroos, the wallabies, the emus, and the rest of the Australian outback. All right, so the reason for 1 paper match, that would have been me saying, okay, let's set up a scenario. That was one of there's a big scenario and there's all the little scenarios within that scenario. And this would have been saying, okay, I want to show them how to, I probably show you how to get 2 fires out of 1 match. That's probably what I show in this episode, but like so many of these, watching these as a director's commentary for you guys, I don't remember the last time I even saw this episode. Years ago, for sure. Let's keep watching.
Fortunately, there's also 1 small piece of beef jerky still left in my pocket.
Again, a kind of situation that could be very normal. And that's the interesting thing. With 1 piece of beef jerky, do you ration it? What do you do? And it's not that normal for people to get lost with absolutely nothing. It's much more normal to be lost with some stuff. And that's why I always like to sprinkle some stuff in to show you what's possible and the difference, basically. No time like the present to go into survival mode, and this is a good little score of wire here. Get my multi-tool, cut some of this off, I'm sure. I'll find a use for wire. I always do.
This is how to have a good survival mentality. I try to never miss a chance to better my situation by taking advantage of whatever I can scrounge or collect.
Well, wind's still howling out there. And I'm just gonna huddle in here inside the plane and try and get some sleep through the night. In the morning, I'll head out of here. I gotta make my way to some place that's got more water. Well, it has water, period.
Like my times in the Kalahari and the deserts of Arizona, it's the dry wind that sucks the moisture out of me more than anything else, and it's partnered with the surprising temperature fluctuations. And that's something to remember when it comes to dehydrating, is that convection, the moisture being sucked out of your body by a lot of wind, even cool wind, but certainly hot, dry wind, I mean, it would be measurable how much liquid is being sucked out of your body that way. It's one of the reasons why you become so parched in the desert, or you can in a winter situation. The wind is always sucking moisture away from your body.
Everyone always said how hot it could get down in the Australian outback. No one ever mentioned how cold it could be. You can get up to 47 degrees Celsius here, which is extremely hot, but it can get down to freezing at night, so I'm gonna get out of this plane and see if I can find a better spot to survive.
I can tell by the clothing that this must have been the season where Columbia came on and sponsored me. I've told that story before about how Columbia came on board. Discovery Channel brought me the Columbia contract. They would have charged Columbia so much more money than what I got. And what kind of money do you get in situations like that? Oh gosh. If I remember, actually there's an interesting story to this. I remember I had it was either a lawyer or an agent of some sort. I can't remember who, but I remember the story now. And they were handling the deal for me. And they came back and said, Les, I think you could get, $50 to maybe even $70,000 for this endorsement deal. And I already knew that Discovery Channel was probably getting $500,000 or $1 million, because they got exorbitant amounts of money from these varying deals. And I remember thinking about, the agent or whoever it was told me that. I think it was my lawyer at the time. And I loved my lawyer. I think this might be the only time in all our negotiating where my lawyer, I felt he's way off. No, you're way off, man. There's no way. And so I said, I'm going to take care of this one myself. And then I came back to get me later. He goes, so how much did you end up getting? I think I upped them to $320,000. $320,000 to wear some jackets. Yeah. That's the television business. Where's that money now? It's long gone. Where did it go into? Well, when you've got a staff of 18 and another outsource staff of another 5 or 6, that money goes really quickly. That's not me. I'm not disclaiming. I'm not claiming that it's not an amazing amount of money to get as an endorsement deal. It certainly was awesome. But it's eaten up really quickly. When you're in a business that's expanding and growing and you've got all these staff members, there's a fly in this room, for goodness sakes. The numbers like that are actually small and they get eaten up really quickly. I know for some of you, you're thinking, that's insane, what an insane amount of money. But when you get into the business world of this, it is insane how much money passes hands, but it's also crazy how quickly that money is soaked up by expenses and costs. And anybody who runs business knows this fact. But yeah, I think that's what the deal was, somewhere around there, $320,000. And anyway, I told my lawyer and he just laughed. He just laughed out loud and said, yeah, so. And after that I knew, after that, and to this day, I pretty much do all my own deals. But I don't get that kind of offer anymore, let me tell you.
Gotta be a yoga instructor just to get in and out of these things. I'm going to take this rope with me because I know I can probably make use of it out there. Plane should be okay. It's tied down on 3 sides here. It's windy and it's cool.
Actually, it's not uncommon for a plane to be flipped over completely upside down, especially a light little aircraft like this Challenger 2. Challenger 2, Challenger 3, I can't remember which. Loved it, by the way. Amazing aircraft. It's like dancing around up in the wind in a whitewater kayak. So much fun. At 45 knots, you're way at its max there, but you can hold it in one place in the wind. If you're facing the wind at 45 knots, you can actually just keep it like that without it going anywhere, like you're a helicopter. It's amazing. So I love it, and I miss it.
And that means that it's a good time to be hiking across this land, because when it changes and it goes back to being the outback that we all hear about, extremely hot and dry, that's not going to be any time to be traveling.
There's no water and no shade where the plain is now, so my only option is to head out to what I hope are greener pastures. In the desert.
This is definitely one of those times where I took advantage of the Survivorman series, saying, well, where do I want to go? People ask, how I chose my locations, and a lot of times it starts with a whim. Oh, I'd really like to go to Australia. Never been there before. Oh man, I want to go to the Cook Islands. Never been there before. And that's where it starts. Then I have to actually find a true and real survival story that I can get involved in and that I can actually tell. But often it starts just from desire.
Most dead bodies don't decay very fast. In fact, they last a long time, almost preserved. A constant reminder that there is little to support life out here. I'll need to find water if I expect to make it.
Finding a lot of bones as I walk along.
Hopefully, some of you have now seen, or will very soon see, that I will be releasing all the Survivorman training videos. So this is all the content we shot before I went out and actually did my Survivorman stint. We used to film those. There would be a week of training, and I think I did spend about a week of training in Australia, and I'm pretty sure we would have filmed all of that. So as we're going back and finding these on hard drives and tapes and things like that, we're editing all that content together and showing it to you. So if you haven't seen that yet, by the time you see this, there will very likely be at least one that's up on this YouTube channel. So go down beneath us there, click on playlists, and I'm not sure what playlist I'll put that in, actually. I guess I'll come up with Survivorman training playlist or something like that, and look for them, or just type it in the search field, and you'll find it. But hopefully I already have seen the one we've been working on, which was the one in Arizona with David Halliday, and I love it. I think you guys will love it too, because this is never before seen footage in the early years of Survivorman.
Mostly kangaroo. And the odd emu.
I'll probably reference Laura Bombier so that we can drop in some interview footage of her, because I do remember that Laura must have been on this shoot. I can't remember, full disclosure, absolute full candid disclosure. At some point in the process of filming Survivorman, I can't remember the years or when. I don't think here yet. I did end up separating from my wife, and then shortly after that, not because of that, or this wasn't the reason, Laura Bombier, the photographer, and I actually became an item, became a thing. And so we dated through a number of years of me filming Survivorman, Beyond Survival. I think that might be it, maybe some Bigfoot. Can't remember when Laura and I split up. But we're still friends to this day. And if you do get a chance, by the way, check out her photography work. She shot 25,000 photos of me for Survivorman, but she does beautiful photography work for children. In fact, she's probably got something to say about something. I'll let her talk right now. Go ahead, Laura.
Well, the beginning parts, obviously, we would film with you and the local expert, and those were always sort of like the warm-up, I felt, You're out there and you're sort of you're getting your bearings, you're learning about the flora and fauna. I'm also getting used to photographing you in a new environment, new lighting. And then, you would go in on your 7 days, and I would do a lot of photographs in and around the area, the tribes. Being an opportunistic photographer, I'm in an environment where I would never be in if I was traveling on a holiday as a tourist. Unique, dynamic situations. So it's it's like capturing as much content as possible. So if there was some article that maybe, we would do for Outside magazine that was about you with a tribe in Ecuador, we had all these extra shots that weren't just about Survivorman. They could be potentially for anything.
So that's Laura Bombier. More from her in the future as what she has to say relates to maybe some of the stuff we're doing. I know we talked a lot about Argentina, for example. So when we get to the director's commentary on that, I'll bring Laura back. And possibly you'll see a bit more of Max, my cameraman in the field, and also editor, and Barry Farrell, my senior editor. But because I interviewed all three of them. So anyway, enough of that. Here we go.
This is a lot of Outback. And it's probably only...
So you see what I'm holding right there? In my right hand, the little camera. Oh, actually, I'll work from the camera down. On that camera right there, that is a wide-angle lens adapter. Now, I made sure that, at the time, these cameras were state-of-the-art. At the time. They're nothing now. They're paperweights now. But I would always put, always, a wide-angle lens on all the cameras I had because I was doing so much shooting in close claustrophobically? Yeah, I'm sticking with that word. The wide-angle lens helped to give a little bit of air in the image on screen that you were watching. And I did that with all the cameras. I always got that adapter. And underneath it, I'm holding a little thing called the Pod beanbag. I don't know if these guys are still in business. Really nice guys. They made me a bunch of Survivorman little mini Pod beanbags. And to this day, I still have about a dozen of them left. Maybe not that many. I've given so many away. But I love them. Love them for little cameras. They don't work so well with GoPros. It's just not balanced right. But for little cameras like that, those little beanbags were Survivorman gold because I would put them everywhere and they just worked constantly for me in getting a good shot and having to put my camera down in mud or what have you.
A pinhead compared to what actually exists out here. It's a big area.
A lot of flies here. Fortunately, they don't bite. When you come from Canada, if you come to some other place and the flies don't bite, well, hey, that's a bonus. One of those places that's ultimately quite beautiful, at the same time, quite desolate.
I'd probably say this in the show, but Australia is famous for having more poisonous creatures than any other country in the world. What they don't tell you when they do that sort of machismo brag is that they're also vastly spread out. I saw far more poisonous creatures in the Amazon jungle than I ever saw in Australia because they're more condensed in the Amazon jungle. There aren't as many, there's not as wide a variety, but they're much more condensed. But in Australia, oh yeah, no, you have to go far and wide. There's more variety, but they're spread out. So, just saying.
There's beauty in all nature, that's for sure. No matter how barren it might seem.
I just keep stopping this one. That is a point that point is my point. It's a point that I've been trying to make for years. It's been the underlying point of all Survivorman, everything I've ever done. Survivorman, Beyond Survival, Bigfoot, Wild Harvest, my music, my writings. It's that nature is beautiful. And even in an ugly situation, there's beauty all around you. And I enjoyed making that statement in so many of my Survivorman episodes because I kind of always want to say, but remember, this is the natural world, this is nature. And if you know how to survive, even in a tough situation, you're still going to see the beauty.
Everything's dying here. One thing about all these logs and everything down here is that they're a perfect place for king brown snakes. King brown snake bites you, and you've got a couple hours to live.
I think that in a lot of different Survivorman episodes, when I would speak of the dangers, I think it kind of worked almost like the movie Jaws. Most productions would instantly, in a situation like that, cut to a king brown snake and show you amazing, beautiful, stock purchased footage of a king brown snake. But I didn't, because I wanted you to live out every minute with me that I was there. And having you feel the same fear or worry that I might have for such a snake, but never seeing it, like the movie Jaws, it's, I think, in many ways almost more compelling and can make you more in tune with the dangers.
There's a section here with some shade, and I think that I'm gonna stop hiking and call this place my base camp for now. I don't know if there's any water, if I can dig for water or find water. I've got a bit left in my canteen, so we'll see what I can do here. There's an eagle's nest at the top of one of these trees, and that's a good sign, I think. So, good sign for me, anyway.
Australia is home to the densest population of poisonous creatures on the entire planet. But don't let that scare you, because in reality, they're spread out far and wide on a very big continent. On the other hand, you can sometimes find a shocking amount of poisonous spiders and snakes all clustered into one small territory.
These flies are going to be a pain.
Actually, I just want to stop there. If you saw the scenes that you just saw, if you really were paying attention, you noticed that it was me just messing with my cameras, but it showed you how far and wide I go to place cameras to get a shot, to place you in the scene, to place you in the location where I am. And it was, yes, it was an awful lot of work. I've said that one. I've said that many times before. Anyway, let's get back to the flies. Here's something you didn't know. In every Survivorman episode that I ever shot, I wore contact lenses. So think about that for a second. I got to get up in the morning, sleeping in some shelter or on some rock. Maybe it's blizzarding and blowing, it's freezing cold. Maybe I'm in the jungle, sleeping in the mud. Maybe I'm in the desert, and it's sandy everywhere. And I have to get up every morning and put in my contact lenses. Yeah, imagine that. If only I'd known about delivercontacts.com, because they would have brought me fresh, clean contacts every morning. Free delivery, the lowest rates, and the top brands. Here's a story. I'm about to shoot an episode for Shark Week. I'm gonna jump into the ocean. There's a crew down there. They're gonna film me come in. All right, splash. I go down in. I look and I notice my contact lens is floating around in my mask. There's 3-foot swells. I have to go back up, hold on to the end of the boat. It's going up and down, push my mask off. There's my lens floating around in the salt water. Have to take my hand, one finger, trying to get it, put it into my eye, with the ocean water splashing me at the same time, get the mask back up, and back down I go to film the show. DeliverContacts.com would have been there for me in a heartbeat. They would have swam across the ocean in all likelihood and brought me a fresh lens. So I'm so very honored that DeliverContacts.com is sponsoring this very video you're watching right now.
Bite, but they love to go into the corners of your eyes here. You can see that. Up your nose, in your ears. Well, these guys are annoying. This tree is very thorny. It's the Acacia Victoria tree. This little find here is fantastic.
Oh, sweet. The traditional cultures would actually break these branches and come back maybe even a year later, and this gob of acacia sap would be there from the break, would be scarring over, and it is pure sugar. Maybe not pure sugar, but it's got a lot of sugar. Yep. Flies. So it's going to stick to my teeth, but this is a nice little, get out of my eye, boost of sugar, courtesy of the acacia tree.
I'm surprised I'm kind of flinching from the flies, because when I was there ahead of time and training and learning, I remember whoever our cameraman was at the time, maybe Max, maybe Andy, I should go to the credits before I do this talk so I know who I'm referencing, and Laura and the local, like, they were just freaking out from the flies. And I was fine with it. It's definitely one of those moments where you have to find your Zen place, because the flies didn't bite. So they're not a problem at all. Come to Canada in June, and specifically Northern Ontario, and then tell me what you think.
I'll keep me going for a while. It's a good way to get someone to shut up, too, because when you chew down on it, it locks your jaw. Your teeth won't open up again. So I'm going to stop talking for a while. This is very small fare indeed, but... Oh, yeah. This is lemongrass. It's not much, but there's little clumps of it all around here. Really nice flavor. And it just helped to keep putting energy back into me that the sun and the wind are pulling out. Out of the very dry and very desolate-looking outback, there seems to be a number of surprises that can nourish the body. This is called tar vine. Good salad green, edible. Roots and all. This is a lucky score.
And that is how a lot of what happened during Survivorman location shoots was just a good find. I will have trained in all these things ahead of time, but then I generally go off to some location, you know, in the words of Loki, I know not where. And whatever I find, I find. And when I did find, like in in Colorado, finding miner's lettuce, for example, it's just awesome. And of course, it creates another scene, something I can show. And of course, all of that led to my new series, Wild Harvest, which you do need to watch. If you have not seen Wild Harvest, please check it out. It's airing on PBS stations in the United States. It's on Cottage Life TV in Canada. It's on Matt Canalan in Sweden and Norway, Godare in Sweden, Matt Canalan in Norway. It's on National Geographic in Asia. If you haven't caught that, you can also see it on this YouTube channel. Go to the playlist, Wild Harvest TV series, and watch all the episodes there. Go ahead, Luke, show them the promo. Woo-hoo! Beautiful little rainbow. Dinner.
This perhaps is the most incredible kitchen scenario I've ever had.
When you start getting involved in local foraging and bringing the ingredients home and playing with them in the kitchen, can you create a dish where the domestic ingredients don't overshadow the wild ingredients? Hey there! Oh! Go on! Now the job's getting fun.
This dish is a showcase of how great these foraged ingredients come together.
It's the best when it's its own flavor. When you're making something with a wild edible, you're nailing it and not losing the wild flavor.
Sometimes it is about the ingredients.
Doesn't that look amazing? I love making that show. We're just working on getting season 3 going right now.
A lot of the ticks around here can make a human pretty sick, so I'm gonna stay more out on the flat here. It's very unlikely that there'll be any ticks here. This is not gonna be a very comfortable night for me. I can see that coming, but I'll do what I can, because you gotta get sleep. If you don't get any sleep, well, you start getting a little psychotic, actually. Nobody wants to have a psychotic episode out here now.
Every move out here that
No doubt I probably stole that line from Men in Black.
I make to improve my situation and get set up for survival has to be well thought out, calculated, and methodical. Risking injury based on foolish and frantic moves is a huge mistake that in some cases can have fatal consequences.
Now, there's no doubt that I probably put that narration in there, specifically because by this point, the copycat shows such as Man vs. Wild were now big. And they were doing all that silly, stupid stuff that you don't do in a real survival situation. So I was always looking for those opportunities to say, okay, I'm going to correct some of that nonsense. It's like I can hear it in my voice and I can hear it in the writing of that narration.
Well, it's fire time, and I've only got one paper match. Here you go. If I'm very, very careful, I can split it right down the center, turn it into 2 matches. Okay. See? And then get it down to the end here. It's the tricky part at the end, because you want the match head to actually split off. Okay, here we go. One match has now become 2.
Come on, that is a cool little tip when it comes to survival, and having paper matches, which normally smokers, most people who smoke, they might have paper matches. Nowadays it's usually a lighter, but still they exist. They're out there, and you can find them in a survival situation sometimes, maybe in a lost camp or cabin or something like that. Well, that's a way to extend them. I loved those types of little tricks and techniques and tips for survival. Because that is a complete throwback to the years of me teaching survival.
Woo! Yes, indeed, it worked. Look at that. And that's all it took. Just split the one match in 2, and instead of being left with one match to survive, I have 2. And I have fire. There's a lot of this around. There's cattle dung and sheep's dung, goat dung, and all of it can go on the fire. It will finally help to get rid of these flies. Just like it does all around the world. Dry cattle dung works real well to get rid of flies, and I have no idea why. It just does. The Aboriginals, or at least some of them, actually believe that if they put a rope around where they're going to sleep at night, that snakes will not go over top of the rope. Now, they go over sticks, they go over stones, so I don't know. And I haven't got a clue whether or not it's actually true, but the reality is I'll take any bit of help I can get.
Let's do a quick shout out here to Barry. See what Barry has to say about doing different and new techniques for editing Survivorman, because I know that he enjoyed, for example, bringing in this split screen look. It wasn't used very much at all, if at all, in those days, and we brought it in because it accomplished telling the story so well. Yeah, Barry, what do you got to say?
Well, one thing I've always been a fan of is palette, and that's one thing that I wanted to make sure that Survivorman had, is every episode was a palette, and that palette was musical and it was also color. And just the style of how things would do, like the darker something would be, it would be like a film noir type of feel to it. So we would apply that type of sensibility to how it was edited and how the camera would move or not move. Certain other things, like here's a good example, is it was the first time we did this, but the Arctic, we used split screen through the 2 cameras rolling through an entire take, through a whole scene, without having cuts or very few cuts in it.
Saved the foam cushion from the airplane, brought it along with me. So we've got a little bit of a pad, otherwise I'm just laying right in the dirt here. Sun's already up. I did get chilled a bit, but as long as I kept the fire going, I was fine through the night, so I'm gonna get moving now before that sun and the heat starts to kick in, and see if I can find myself a spot with water, because that is what is important now.
There are so many variables that will play into a decision on whether to stay put or go. Certainly no available water makes the decision easy for me this time. But sometimes trying to figure out whether or not I should move on can be perplexing to the point of great frustration. And it's heartbreaking to make the effort to move only to find myself in an even worse location.
Almost empty.
In my case, I always have the added challenge of filming my travels as I walk along, alone.
Well, come to yet another creek bed with any luck at all. This one won't be as dry as the last one. Nothing. Dry, dry, dry. I hear you. It's dry, dry, dry here. You can just see a faint glimmer of water down there, so This creek bed goes for a long ways. Dry as a bone, but eventually you go downhill enough, you come to some water. Whether or not it's drinkable, that's another story.
Even though the water here appears clean, I'm going to boil it first and then let it cool, so I can at least feel safe drinking water with no live pathogens.
I think I even see something down there I can eat. See him down there? If you remember, all rope really is a bunch of fibers twisted together. Separate them.
Yeah.
You can get down to one fiber.
That's actually another one of my... Okay. This battery did just die. So, you've been watching me over there. So, hang on, got to go put a battery in this camera. Okay, after this camera so rudely interrupted my flow by having its battery die on me, and you know what, actually somebody posted saying, oh, I wonder how long it'll go before one of his batteries dies. Well, okay, it just died again, all right? Deal with it. When you're running 3 cameras at a time, that's what happens. And when you're out filming Survivorman running 3 to 5 cameras, oh, how many times I wanted to throw the camera up against a tree, I've lost count.
Got a little tiny bit of beef sausage there. Beef jerky. Is that they're so hungry most of the time, they'll clamp on to the food, and you can literally just pull them right out of the water and they won't let go. He's got it. He's got it. All right. He knows it's meat, and he's holding on to it. Okay. Now, I don't know if I can do this. I gotta try and pull him up gently, flip him off there. Okay. Hold on to the meat. Come on. Okay. Got him. I got him. I got him. I got him. I got him. Yes. Yeah, baby. That's awesome. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? I cannot wait to eat this guy.
Now, even I'm smiling at looking at myself, realizing I do really get excited when I get actual food, when it's been a couple of days without anything at all. And I remember this scene. This was, you know, this was almost as up there as it was with the Arctic char scene.
Timing is everything. I've been trying for days to catch some fish for survival, and I took the chance on throwing a line in just now while the narwhal were forcing the char close to the shore and right past my lures.
You ain't going anywhere, buddy. Oh, yeah. Yeah, baby.
See what I mean? You get pretty excited when it's been a while without food, and then you get some real food.
Buddy, I'm nicknaming you dinner.
It's pretty amazing how even the slightest of meals, meant for an empty stomach, can lift the spirit when you're trying to survive.
Come on, come on. Yeah. One match, 2 fires. That's the end of my matches, but I've got a good fire going now, so that's what's important. Nice. This patch of green here is called watercress. Now, if I can get in here and gather some, without finding that there's a snake den. All right, that's the stuff. Got a peppery taste to it. Mmm. Oh, a little bit bitter, but really good for me. And a fantastic find right here on the creek. Okay, buddy. This is your last moments of life, but I am going to enjoy the energy you're going to transfer into me.
There you go. Oh, this is gonna be sweet. Little freshwater lobster. Pull the legs off. Snap the tail off. That's fantastic. Well, in Canada, they call them crayfish, they call them crawdaddies in the United States, and here they call them yabbies. But either way, tonight, I'm calling it dinner. Mmm. Oh my gosh, that's good. Oh. Oh yeah. I'm catching more of those guys. You can count on it.
I always get asked, about what my favorite meals were, and I forget about these yabbies. I forgot until just this moment just how delicious they were and how fun it was to catch them. Huh.
There's lots of sign of feral sheep. That's old sheep death here. So, no surprise to find dead carcasses here and there. I always thought the pelvic bone of most animals kind of look like a mask.
I should be okay here. I'm underneath a very green, very alive tree. There's a couple of dead ones further up, but
With any luck at all, I'll be okay. A little bit chancy, but I just do not feel like being out in the sun. So I'm gonna clear an area here, but this time I'm gonna do something a little different. I'm going to heat up this ground. So by the time I sleep on it, it'll be nice and warm.
Now that's actually
What I was doing at the other place.
that's actually an old trick we've taught in survival for many, many years. You can see it also in the Jeremiah Johnson movie, where Bear Claw shows Jeremiah how to do it.
These coals here will simmer until sunrise.
In the boreal forest episode, I burned the rock there to make it warm. In fact, Luke, show some of that right now.
In a couple of hours, or at least when this fire dies down, I'll just sit here and wait for it. I'll then push all the coals up against the big rock, take all these boughs, put them down, and sleep on top with a nice warm bed. Basically, all the heat from the rock coming up through the boughs. I call it my Jeremiah Johnson shelter.
Uh-huh. Yeah, you see, I did do it there. Okay, let's keep watching.
Trying to put all the burnable stuff on my bed.
It may not seem like it's needed in the desert, but nights can get much cooler than you expect, and this method will keep the chill out of my bones.
Now, those guys would go nice roasted over the fire. It's about a half a dozen emu up there. I'll go up there, but little chance I'll get close to them. Well, that's the way it is. With large game like an emu, it'd be wonderful to catch one of those. Of course, if I had a high-powered rifle, it'd be easy, but just on foot, it's impossible for a human to run down an emu. Best thing would be for me to hope to come upon an emu nest, and even then, they're guarded by the males. Now, their front talons can just rip a nasty gash into you. They can kill people if they get you in the right spot, so you gotta be real careful with emu.
Same thing as ostrich in Africa. They've been their talons can rip right down the center of your rib cage and just rip it open. Very dangerous creature, actually.
The key to catching big game is generally found in having some serious hunting weapons, a rifle, or at least a good bow and arrow combination. Catching big game by hand, or even traps, is a pipe dream at best, and that can be really disappointing if your expectations for a successful hunt are too high.
All right, the last thing I have to do now is just simply go over and now that the ground's cooled down, I'll just put the greenery on top of it and that bit of foam that I got out of the airplane, roll on top, and I will be toasty warm all night long. It works really well when you do it right. You just got to do it safely, because otherwise you burn yourself. And I did melt the bottom of my shoes.
I have done it where I've made it too hot and couldn't get into lying down for hours. Like I had to wait until midnight kind of thing before I could actually lie on the area I'd been burning because it was just too hot. If you do it just right and then put the right amount of cover on, you can crawl right onto a situation like that and be warm for many, many hours into the night and get a good night's sleep.
The morning sun revealed to me a surprise of roosting doves just waiting to become breakfast. That is, as long as my aim is good.
Well, I went for a little walk, and I may have found myself a treat or two. Remember this? That's that wire that I found on the ground on the first night. You can see I've got it bent over there. I know it doesn't look like much, but with any luck at all, there'll be a treat inside this little hole here. You gotta move quick because the treat that's in there will start to move.
This was one of my most favorite new survival techniques that I ever learned when I went to other countries, other places, was this one right here. And me doing this right here as I'm doing it is the very first time I've ever done it. So, which means it's one of those things you can learn that's not that difficult. A lot of things are very difficult. It's not that easy to snare a rabbit, for example. But in recognizing this spot, you have to see the bump on the tree. Sometimes you're looking for the dust on the ground that was made by this creature. And it's brown dust on a brown ground surrounded by brown leaves. So it's tricky, but I spotted this, and this was just very cool. I loved this. You can feel it go pop. Woo!
Oh, yeah. This is called a witchetty grub, just a little one.
Nice peanutty taste. Sweet deal.
And that was the other thing, you know, a lot of times when I was showing these different things, they were delicious to eat. You weren't going to see me every time I eat something going, oh, that's really gross, and oh my God, it's so gross, but I'm going to eat it, and that's going to go drip down my chin while I eat it and look really cool. Never did that, because it just wasn't the truth. The truth was a lot of times these little survival foods that you can find are quite tasty, and I get asked often what was my favorite one of all time, and notwithstanding the Arctic char, it was these witchetty grubs, especially once I roasted them, because they're absolutely delicious.
This is more classic example of where you can find a witchetty grub. And you can see the swelling in the tree. That should indicate that there's a witchetty grub in there. Oh, I see him.
Cutting into the cavity that the grub has created won't harm the tree at all. Eventually, it scars over and continues to live without issue.
Oh my gosh. Oh yeah, sweet. Look at that. Look at the size of that guy. I'm gonna cook him up for breakfast. All right, so he's just gonna straighten out as he heats up. Gets all toasted for me. This is gonna be good. Ooh, sizzling.
Oh, I remember.
I think that's about all
I
it
remember
needs.
this.
So, ooh, it's actually hot. So first thing I want to do is pop the head off. Same thing at the back end. I want to pull the bum, because with it comes all the poop and stuff.
Which, by the way, is a trick that happens with a lot of insects and grubs and things. If you pull the head, you pull the guts out, and you pull the bum, you pull the rest of the guts out. Same thing with grasshoppers. Learned that from David Halliday in the deserts. You pull the head of the grasshopper out, and it pulls all of the guts out with it. And that's stuff that you don't want, especially, and usually with animals and insects, fish, you want to get rid of you don't want to eat at least the lower part of the intestines for obvious reasons.
Wait for it. Oh, Oh, this is gonna give me a lot of energy, believe it or not. This is not the kind of creepy crawly that conjures up plate fright where you gotta get it in your mouth and down quick so you can get the nutrients. This is tasty. Oh man, that's good. Well, I will definitely try to find more damp areas further downstream and see if I can get myself some more of those witchetty grubs. If I could have 3 or 4, 5 of those a day, I'd be actually surviving quite well. They're full of nutrients. Oh, that was good.
And the indigenous cultures in Australia would have survived off of those and the yabbies, maybe obviously catching an emu, but it was collecting all of these smaller critters when they're not so small, because I mean that's substantial size, that you have survival.
Yeah,
Real
that's
survival.
better than eating them raw. Yeah, sweet. Yeah. The witchetty grub, which is the larva of the ghost moth, used to attract hordes of Aboriginal peoples from all different tribes to come and dine on them as a delicacy.
This is a new one. I'm cooking witchetty grubs over cow manure.
They can take up to 2 years to grow inside the tree.
Oh, that's good.
While my luck is with me, I figure I should go after some more yabbies too.
Not sure if I say it in this show or not, but what they tasted like, imagine Thai peanut paste inside a pork rind. And hot. Yeah, they're really good.
See you. It's coming right to you, big fella. Yeah, you see that hunk of meat? Come on, buddy. She's all yours. Oh, juicy jerky. Well, it's a little guy, but I'll take him if he comes up. Oh, 2 of them fighting for it. Yeah! Got him! That's one! Yeah! Yeah! Only this time, they're not scorpions. Yes! Yes, indeed! That ought to do it. X. This is what I'm about to enjoy. Look at that.
I forgot how much I liked this episode. This is a cool one.
Oh, man, is that good. So this is a good feast. I've had witchetty grub, and I can still find more of them, I hope. I'm gonna head further downstream to find a wetter area so I can really load up on a whole mass of witchetty grub if possible, because they will keep me going a long time. The yabbies are fantastic, so I've got a good feast tonight on yabbies, and what I might do is actually build a trap and see if I can have some more yabbies caught that I can actually take with me tomorrow.
You know what? So while we're at it, you know, the opposite of the witchetty grub was another grub that looked similar that I ate in Indonesia with the Mentawai tribe. And it was absolutely disgusting and gross. It was like if you took milk and put it in a plastic Ziploc bag and left it out in the sun for 2 weeks and then bit into the bag. It was just, you know what? Luke, go ahead. Show them that scene by comparison. Take a look.
I don't. Oh, that's disgusting. I bet you it tastes good. So this is the sago larva. This is a treat for these guys. The kid ate his first because it's a treat. I just can't eat the head. Okay. Okay, me and you. Me and you.
Mananam. Mananam.
Mananam.
Mananam.
Yeah, I'm just saying that.
Mananam.
That means delicious.
Mananam amatsaidu.
You know, I've had better.
Mananam.
You know how you chew that last piece of grizzle and you can't swallow it, but it's still in your mouth and you just keep chewing and then you're looking around for the bread on the table? This is one of those moments. Oh! Oh man.
Mananam.
Mananam. Delicious. That's the sago larva. Didn't it look delicious?
See what I mean? You know, similar situation, a grub that lives in a tree, but absolutely horrid to eat. And in this case, the witchetty grub, trust me, it's delicious. If you ever get a chance, don't pass it up.
So the arm of my shirt. Tie off one end here. Some of that wire that I found. Okay. There we go. And my bait is going to be leftovers from the yabbies. With the trap left in the water, I can let it work for me. And with luck, it'll be productive enough to get me a meal.
You know, in hindsight, though, I might have been better off just sort of finding a way to kind of fry up the carcasses of the yabbies, because you can eat those as well. In hindsight, that maybe would have been a better thing to do, actually.
That was some feast, let me tell you. Day full of grubs, witchetty grubs, and yabbies. Feels good.
This is where I think my luck turns, if I remember correctly. I forgot how well I had it on that day 4, just sitting by that little creek and catching and eating the two different species of creatures there. My memory of Australia has it that it was much harder than what I'm seeing on the show. Kind of funny.
Oh, nothing. Sacrificed my entire sleeve off my shirt for a trap. And got nothing. Well, one thing's for sure. I'm gonna travel today. I don't have any more matches, so I'm gonna have to get a fire going somehow at the other end, and I know how I can do this. Now, instead of doing sort of a traditional fire bundle, I might as well make use of the tin can, some cow dung. Essentially, any of the dung that comes from grass-eating animals, ungulates, hoofed animals, is essentially just packed down grass, and so then it's left to dry and harden, and you have the perfect fire bundle. So I'm going to get this big patty just smoldering, and then I'll be able to carry it with me to my next location. Now the problem is, right now it's super, super windy, and I can blow sparks and blow things, and you can start a brush fire that way, so I've got to be really careful. There we go, that's all I need. Get this cow dung smoking like this. And I've got myself a modern twist on a fire bundle.
And again, you know, you want to learn various survival methods or components of survival. You know, getting a fire going is one, and that's the one everybody obsesses on. How about traveling with fire? Practice traveling with a fire. That's another story altogether, and that's what original humans had to do. They got their fire from maybe there was a forest fire situation or whatever, and they would carry that. So you learn ways to carry a coal, carry something smoldering. Something for you to practice for sure. You're busy practicing how to get a fire going. Try practicing how to travel with your fire so that you don't have to use your matches or lighter at the other end.
It's smoking well. Hopefully it'll last the trip. Amazingly, I've found only 4 grubs in an area a few hundred yards long. There are plenty of yabbies here, but I figure they'll be in every stream in the area. So I've decided to move on to better grub hunting ground. This time, my decision to move may not serve me well at all.
Wind is really blowing strong now. Pot's still smoking fine though. That's good.
I've walked for many miles now, way too far to turn back. So I'll have to survive with whatever I find here.
This is a dry place. I can't walk any farther. Looks like I've come to a spot with some water down there. Doesn't really look like it's flowing as much as the last place, but it's water. I've got to come back for this camera. This area looks like it could be an excellent area for a lot of king brown snakes to live. So I want to get up and out of their way, and I think on these rocks up here with this one nice little sleeping platform is perfect. I can have a fire here, heat reflected off from the rocks, and hopefully be free and clear from the snakes. Of course, there's skeletons up here, so things have died up here, that's for sure.
Smoking cow dung has worked like a charm to carry my fire to this new location.
A couple hours of daylight left. See what happens tomorrow. Oh, that was quick.
Like so many places on the planet, the Aboriginals have told their stories of survival by painting on rock.
Day 5, getting tired. Flies will get to you, the heat gets to you, the sand and the dirt gets to you. And so anything you can do to keep your mind occupied is really important. Even if that means drawing pictures on a rock. The Outback has a lot of moods to it, a lot of colors, a lot of different scenes, all of them worth seeing. You just don't want to have to survive out here, that's all.
I loved the nuances that I was able to present to you when just teaching you a survival component, a survival method. And this whole thing about keeping your mind occupied, I will always harp on that because it's so vital and so important. Getting bored and makes you lethargic, and being lethargic, and it makes you lazy, and it can be all crushing in the end. And so, get out of here, fly. And so those nuances of what I was able to teach while doing the Survivorman series, to be quite honest with you, I feel is what set Survivorman apart from all of the shows that followed, is that they missed the nuances and the realities. They would say something about being lonely or feeling the hunger pain, but they missed the nuances of what it really takes to survive. And so understanding that keeping your mind busy and active, it was always an important component that I taught on almost every episode. And I really enjoyed that. I love coming upon coming upon the watercress or something like that. I knew while filming an episode that I had something. At some point on one day, I'd be like, I've shot a lot of cool scenes. I got the yabbies, I've got the witchetty grubs, I've got the watercress, I've got the lemongrass, and I've on and on, right? And I would, those things would add up in my mind, and I'd think, I've been telling a really good survival story here. And then I just hoped that I filmed things well enough. And I will admit, sometimes I would bring to Barry a lot of, maybe in this case, I don't know, a lot of stuff, but not a nice through thread, as we would say, in the narrative. And that's where a phenomenal editor comes in and helps you by editing your chunky content into a form that has a nice through story. That's vital in filmmaking.
So bring water. Go. That's good water. I brought it from the other location. The water here is terrible. Looks like just a cesspool. I'm gonna have to dig for water for sure. And I'm gonna have to try and find some food. There's a lot of heat actually down in this valley, which surprises me. I would have thought there'd be more up top, but I think it's coming off of the rocks, the heat of the day, and keeping it warm down here. I don't even need a jacket on at the moment. So I'm just gonna curl up by the fire here. And tomorrow, see what I can do about finding some food, but especially finding some good clean water. I'm gonna have to dig for it, I'm sure. The birds are noisy tonight. Keep my eye out for snakes tonight, that's for sure.
Sun's coming up. Sun's coming up early, which means it's going to be hot soon. So I'm going to get moving now and spend a couple hours this morning seeing what I can find. I'll worry about digging for water a little later on, but I'm going.
You know, just looking at the B-roll that exists for this show, I don't know if we had a second camera up on this episode, because in any event, we're not using very much B-roll, as we would call it, so not sure why.
Go up and down the valley here, see if I can find something I can eat, have a look around, see what I've got to work with. It wasn't too bad last night. It was actually really warm all night long. The good news is it got really windy. Hopefully it'll stay that way. That'll help to keep the flies down and help to keep it from being scorching hot. But if it dies, it's gonna be a hot day, so I better get moving now. I smell something nasty though.
Just going up and out of the valley first. A bit of a bird's eye view, but ooh. I see what it is. It smells so nasty. Let me go show you.
Now that's life and death in the desert. Sheep around here, some are ranched and some are just feral. Same with the goats. And their carcasses, their skeletons, along with kangaroo skeletons, end up everywhere. Stuff just dies and rots, and foxes move in. Whew. That stinks. That's pretty gross. Dead animals in the water, animal feces, and no doubt tons of animal urine all around it and in it, so. This water's not gonna do me any good at all, not if I wanna actually drink it and live. This would be one of those times where I'd look at the water and say, you know what? I'm opting for dehydration at the moment, because I don't wanna drink out of here. Nasty and gnarly. Well, I've still got another day to go here. I've gotta find some better water, because I'm pretty parched at the moment. When there's this much water around, and I can see that there is underground springs feeding it, then there's no reason not to dig for water. The reality is, if I drink this water, I could make myself horribly sick. So, I'm gonna dig.
I would say this is probably, this along with South Africa, now that I think of it, the worst I've had for going at getting water. This was so disgusting. And there was that time in South Africa too, where I dug for water and I ended up boiling it, actually in the plastic bottle over the fire. Luke, show them the scene from South Africa where I'm digging for water there.
What I'm gonna do is dig myself a hole. Scoop out. It's already starting to fill in with water. It's really as simple as that.
See, did it there too. And I never like this scenario when it comes to water. I really don't like being in a situation where you must boil your water, because I have found that even boiling disgusting water still gives you an upset stomach. So boiling it may kill all the pathogens, but it's still got whatever else in it that can make you terribly sick.
Okay, I'm getting down to the gravel now, which is better. That's the only method that I like to go with if I'm in a situation like this where there's lots of water around, but it's skunky, it's filthy, a lot of animal feces and urine everywhere. Clear that away from the top, dig down a hole, let the water seep in, let it settle and clear, and at least it is the best of whatever water I can get in this area. And then take that and boil it, and I should be okay. You know, what people don't realize about things like cryptosporidium or giardia, other pathogens and diseases you can get from bad water, is that you don't have to drink it to get it. You can just splash it in your eyes, get a little bit on your lips or in your ears from washing, and you can become infected. So you've got to be real careful.
Oh, this whole
Once again, that's one of those instructional nuances that I love being able to give in a series like this is, yeah, you know, in some of their series you might see something highlighted about drinking bad water, but point out the fact that you just have to touch your finger to your eyeball like that with wet fingers and you've infected yourself potentially. So I did enjoy that a lot. And I especially enjoyed it when I knew I could teach something in one of these episodes that I wasn't expecting to be able to teach.
location here. This is a good find. There's a lot of water around it. It's a terrible place as far as king brown snakes go because there's a lot of hiding spots for them with all that wash up. You can see too how high up the flash floods come. At some spots they're 10 feet high, way above my head here. But with all the water and all this fresh young gum trees there, it's a good spot to go on a witchetty grub hunt. Yet another dead animal. Looks like a little, I guess it's hard to tell, decay, but I think it's a baby kangaroo. There's another one. Oh my goodness. Must have been quite a massive flood that came through. Catch them all off guard like that. All right, I'm gonna leave the big camera here and head in, work around those trees, see if I can find some grubs. No, this is such an active area with so much wildlife here. I'd be surprised if there wasn't a few king brown snakes around. The other problem is it's October. And October is when they come out of hibernation and they are their most aggressive. So, be careful. But I need some food. Nothing. When I was asked what I wanted to do when I grew up, I'm not sure my answer would have been, oh, I don't know, stroll around the Australian Outback, seeing if I can find grubs inside trees that I can eat. Of course, then again, maybe that's exactly what I would have said. Oh boy, oh looky. Thought this place would have yielded a whole bunch of grubs. Not seeing anything. Here's a clear example of a grub that's been and gone. Easily see the sawdust. If you look up, there's the hole. He's already gone, and there's probably a redback spider in that hole. Well, that's really disappointing. That means no food today. Well, since I'm not having any luck at all finding grubs in that patch of gum trees, and I really thought I would find a whole bunch of them because it's all young grub trees, and that's where they like to be, there is something up here that'll help a little bit anyway. This is, well, actually, the only name that I know it by is its nickname, which is the Vicks Vapor Rub tree. Not very romantic, but really nice, healthful tea. That'll help bring me some energy on this day that I struck out trying to get a lot of grubs.
You know, this is one of those situations where it would have been much better if I just stayed in that creek area where I caught all the yabbies. Clearly I was in a place where I was having good luck, so why move? Now I moved because I'm filming Survivorman, and you know I can create more survival moments, if you will, by moving and show how to carry fire and things like that. But in truth, I would have been better off just staying in that first spot, especially in a place where you're having a lot of good luck. Why move? Why change your luck when it's good?
I've made a classic mistake. I thought the grass would be greener on the other side, and now I'm in a place that just reeks of death. The grub hunting is lousy, the water's bad, there's no shade. The flies are worse, and there aren't any yabbies at all here to eat. All the indications should have screamed out at me to stay put at the last location. This is a common problem for lost victims, getting antsy and moving on when staying put would have been a better plan.
You almost think that guy just listened to me. I had no idea I was about to say all that stuff, but he makes a good point.
All right, well, at least I'm having some hot tea tonight. That's a bonus. Mostly today, though, was just spent walking up and down this valley, trying to avoid the sun, looking for more wild edibles. Oh my gosh. Didn't even see it. There's a sheep sleeping right out in front of me. I'm not kidding. I'm up here and making noise, and I didn't even know he was there. Well, talk about your edibles. Now, if I had a bow and arrow, or a spear, or a gun, he'd be mine, but I bet you I could walk right up to him and club him. But I'm not gonna do that now, am I? It's all right. I would almost guarantee that sheep is probably the mate to the dead one I found up there. Probably could have snuck up behind him and clubbed him, but better let him go.
And anyway, it would have been illegal. That's the real reason why I wouldn't have clubbed them, is because I wasn't permitted to do anything like that. You have to remember, everything I ever did on Survivorman, I had to first get special permits for, which was not always easy. But in this case, yeah, there's no way I could have actually gone and clubbed that sheep and then filmed it and then shown it. And then, I mean, I would have been picked up and arrested the next time I landed in the Australian airport in Sydney, you know, for on vacation or something. Hey, you're that guy. We've been looking for you. So no, I couldn't have done it. And of course, I never expected to just see a sheep hanging around out there. I expected to see the emus, but not a sheep.
Would have been a good meal, though. Lamb chops.
The feral sheeps and goats that run wild out here would make great survival food. They'd also be much easier to catch than kangaroos or emus. But either way, what's needed is a good rifle to make even an attempt at hunting them worthwhile.
I think musically speaking, you can tell that we probably asked, that's probably Peter, to give us that sort of Australian thematic sounds of the didgeridoo, which, yeah, just to, you know, Barry would often talk about the palettes of the coloring that we would use depending on where the show was, but also the palette of the music that we would use depending on where the show was shot.
The sun is just peeking over the horizon, and man, it actually got pretty cold last night. Kept the fire going well, but it definitely got cold, and I was kind of curled up around it for most of the night. Well, with some good fortune and some good technology, hopefully my safety team will be here soon with the sun on the rise to pick me up. All they have to do is check that GPS coordinate, should land them right here, and I can go home. 7 days in the Australian Outback.
I've used an emergency GPS satellite device to link my location via a tracking signal every 10 minutes onto a web-based map system that my rescue team can log onto back in civilization. It's ingenious, and it enables my rescue team to pinpoint with great accuracy my location.
Oh, Paris Allen was there shooting extra camera with me, which is why we don't have a lot of camera scenes. He was not an actual camera operator. And I didn't realize we'd done this whole GPS thing for this episode. Totally forgot that. But, you know, things like the spot units and the Garmin GPSs and that, they were just beginning. And this was me saying, let's rely on it. Let's trust it and see what happens. So they actually did have to come out and try and find me in this situation based on that. Obviously, they did.
Come and get me. They'll check my position online, and they can find me wherever I stand.
Who's that? Oh, that's Barry Clark, the paramedic. Yep, that's Barry Clark, the paramedic, picking me up. Huh. Well, the video just stopped on me, so that's good. Good time for it to stop. All right, there you go, guys. That's the Australian Outback, and I know a lot of you have been waiting for that one. Definitely, you know, I was in a pretty good place when I was doing this season, and a show like that was very enjoyable for me because it was nuanced, because there were so many components of survival that happen. Sometimes it's one big thing, sometimes it's 4 minor things, sometimes it's 8 small things, but they all add up and they're all cool. And I think I tend to like the 8 small things because there's just so much, there's nuance to that. You know, there's going to be wild edibles, some techniques, some for getting a fire going, for sleeping, what have you. So anyway, I enjoyed that a lot. Before we go, show them my stuff, Luke. Take care, everyone. See you soon. Hey, everyone. Allow me to interrupt myself. I don't really like hawking merchandise and swag, but you guys do ask all the time where you can get certain items. For example, check this out. Hennessy hammock. I put a lot of time and effort into designing this hammock with Hennessy. It's their top hammock. It's an amazing, beautiful, comfortable hammock to enjoy for all of your adventures out there. So just check it out. It's got a full-size tarp, which was a big thing for me. It's got insulation, and I love it. So I've got the Hennessy hammocks. Of course, for years I've been in a phenomenal relationship with Hella of Norway, Hella Knives. And this is our signature knife, of course, the Tamagami. These knives are handmade. In fact, I've been there to this very ancient factory where I don't know how many, it's well over 100 years that they've been operating, and every single handle is handmade. All of the grinding, everything is done by hand. And these knives are absolutely beautiful. I also now have a brand new relationship, and you will see these items, new foraging tools that I'm designing with LT Wright Knives out of Ohio. And also, Chef Paul Rogalski of Wild Harvest has the signature Chef Paul Rogalski kitchen knife collection. Those are a big thrill to me, to have these beautiful items that we spent years designing, and I still have them available for you. However, if you want to go more the route of just enjoying the Survivorman legacy, if you will, then of course, go to my website, lestroud.ca, go to the shop page. Right there, you've got everything. All the swag, all the merch, such as my manual on survival. This is if you want to get into survival. This book is meant to be a way to walk you through step by step, because I deal a lot more with concepts than I do with specifics, because that's really important. Once you understand the concepts of fire by friction, for example, you can do it depending on where you are, because I can't give you the advice on how to do it here in Canada and hope that it's also going to work down in the jungle. Things are different. So I've always been very proud of this book, Survive. So that is my survival manual. Also, if you weren't aware, I've got the book Will to Live. I wrote this book it's kind of for a lot of fun. I took my 10 favorite survival stories, such as Chris McCandless Into the Wild or the Robertson family and the life raft, and I basically dissect them with this book. I tear apart the story, I go through everything, and I even give them a little bit of a grade on how I thought they did. So I really enjoyed writing this book. It's a real easy read, it's a fast read, but I think there's a lot of insight there for you into all of these different examples of people who have either survived or perished. Speaking of books, so honored, so thrilled, so proud that Wild Outside, my first children's book, has won the Yellow Cedar Award, Best Nonfiction Children's Book in Canada for ages 7 to 14. I tell stories from Survivorman, lessons learned during those expeditions and adventures, and there are even activities they can do in the out of doors. So there you go. My new book, my children's book, Wild Outside, Around the World with Survivorman, has just won the Yellow Cedar Award, and I'm up for another award yet. And in keeping with stuff that's going on right now, we are also up for an award for our Season 1 recipe book from the series Wild Harvest. And if you've never caught the series Wild Harvest, check this out. Woohoo! Beautiful little rainbow. Dinner.
This perhaps is the most incredible kitchen scenario I've ever had.
When you start getting involved in local foraging and bringing the ingredients home and playing with them in the kitchen, can you create a dish where the domestic ingredients don't overshadow the wild ingredients? Hey there! Oh! Go on! Now the job's getting fun.
This dish is a showcase of how great these foraged ingredients come together.
It's the best when it's its own flavor. When you're making something with a wild edible, you're nailing it and not losing the wild flavor.
Sometimes it is about the ingredients.
Tell me that doesn't look awesome. 2 seasons right now, 26 episodes. In the United States, it's on PBS stations. You can also get it on this YouTube channel. In Canada, Cottage Life TV. In Sweden and Norway, on Matt Cannellan. It's on National Geographic. Asia, which includes China and India. So my Wild Harvest series is playing around the world now, and we, with every single season, create a recipe book based on the recipes that we show you in the actual shows themselves. So that's Wild Harvest. And of course, if you want the DVD, you can get that on this website as well, lesstroud.ca. And let's not forget too, that I'm a musician. The CDs themselves are available on the website. The next release will be the re-release of the Mother Earth album on vinyl. But go on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you listen to music, or on my website. You can go to the shop page, you can pick up all of my CDs. This is the last one. This is my 20th anniversary selection. Check it out. Every film I've ever made, 76 films in all of the Survivorman, Bigfoot, Beyond Survival, music documentaries, one-off films such as the award-winning Lalache about the school shooting up in Canada and a healing canoe trip. This is my 20th anniversary, 76 films. And people that have picked this up have raved about it. And I'm really proud that I can say I've got 20 years of anything, to be honest with you. That's available for you as well on that Les Stroud shop page. Okay, that's me hawking my stuff. Back to the video.